Welcome to my channel. I'm Dani Walker. Today's episode is all about the recap for Miss Earth 2021. If you're brand new to the channel, I hope that you'll consider subscribing and hitting that notifications bell if you enjoy content like this. This year's Miss Earth competition is still virtual, and I want to talk a little bit more about that in a moment. So sit tight for that, about my thoughts about virtual Miss Earth. But first, I want to talk about the contestants. Since this competition was virtual, obviously there's a lot of things that we would be missing out on, like on-stage introductions that we can't really fill space with during the show. So there was different types of commentary during this competition. So personally, I didn't want to sit through the commentary. So I fast forwarded to the beginning of the show where we actually got to see the contestants competing. So the first place that we saw these contestants in was the top 20 competition for swimsuits. And I also will mention that I felt very fortunate because this year I was invited to judge for the preliminary competition. So I was able to judge beauty of face, and I was glad to see some of my personal favorites in that top 20, including our new Miss Earth. There were a lot of performances in this top 20, so I want to focus on the ones that really stood out to me. First of all, Belize. The videography for this was a really beautiful setting, and I think that when it comes to virtual pageants, that can really enhance the performance. Thinking about things like where you're actually going to film, your location, and the lighting, the time of day, the angles you're going to be shooting, all of that stuff really plays into what I think has been determining the outcomes for virtual pageants recently. I really think that she looked beautiful. When I judged beauty of face, she was one of my personal favorites. I think she is so stunning without makeup, and even with makeup, whatever it is, she's beautiful. And I just wish she would have walked more for her swimsuit video, but we were seeing that in a lot of these videos, many of the contestants weren't really walking. And for me, that's something that is important that I want to see for the swimsuit competition. I want to see how they carry themselves. That also includes the evening gown competition as well. So I wish in the future that if these virtual pageants are going to continue, that we are going to see a lot more of what we would normally see on stage. Chile was a contestant that stuck out to me because of the quality of her video, especially when you look at it in comparison to other contestant videos that were submitted. So she definitely stood out to me here. And I did see that she was a really big fan favorite online leading up to the competition. So I was curious, okay, like how is this gonna measure up? And I did like her, she was standing out. Colombia, very beautiful, also very, very fit. I wish we would have seen her walk more, but even the shots of her and the angles that they showed, you could really see how fit she was. Czech Republic looked so beautiful in her swimsuit video, in my opinion. I thought that it was really well shot. It was simple once again. We're not seeing a lot of walking, but she looked really beautiful. Denmark, to me, in her video really stood out for her physical fitness as well. I think that she looked incredibly fit in this video, and it's obvious why she was in a top 20. I remember her during the preliminary judging, and I thought that she's also really naturally beautiful as well. Malaysia was a really big fan favorite, and I can see why, but I thought that she was really, really sexy in her videos. And when I think of Miss Earth, I don't necessarily think of contestants being over the top sexy. I think of Miss Grand International more in that way. So I think that that could have affected her placement. Netherlands, yay! Thank you so much for walking in your video for swimsuit. That made me so happy. And the shots of her in the sunshine I thought were really, really pretty as well. It was a well done video overall. Philippines, honestly, in recent years, do they ever disappoint? I think not. Can we just talk about for a second that they just won Globe and Intercontinental? What an amazing class of Binibining Pilipinas. Anyways, that's a side note. But even though the Earth franchise is not a part of Binibining Pilipinas, they still send strong delegates to the Miss Earth competition. And I think that she was really pretty and walked well in her video submission. Russia, to me, is so naturally beautiful. She was somebody else that really stood out to me for the Beauty of Face competition. I just wish that she would have walked in her swimsuit submission. South Africa to me stood out because she just put off such friendly and fun vibes in her swimsuit video that I really appreciated. I enjoyed watching her compete. Thailand, huge fan favorite. I was not surprised to see her do well here because she has competed at Miss Universe Thailand in the past before she won the Thailand Earth title. And so I was expecting great things of her, and I think that this video just goes to show how prepared that she was. I thought it was really, really well done. USA, obviously super excited for Marissa, and I was not surprised at how good this looked considering that USA did win the Earth title last year. I know that Marissa was really coming for that crown, but if you don't follow pageantry or Marissa personally, you might not know that she also competed as Miss Maine at the Miss USA competition, and she's competed in the Miss America system as well. So it wasn't really surprising to see her win the National Earth title for the USA, and it wasn't surprising to see her look well here. For the past few years, the Earth USA organization has been putting a lot of prep into their title holders, a lot of work into them, and that's evident, and it really showed here. Are you a pageant contestant that is preparing for your next competition? And do you want to learn how to create a memorable brand that is going to stand out in the interview room and for your onstage question and for your social media branding? If the answer is yes, then be sure to check out Rehearsed Relatable. It is linked in the description below. Venezuela was beautiful. Her video was solid. It looked very Venezuela to me. It's exactly what you would expect from the country. And really, honestly, guys, like, they're a powerhouse. They're gonna do really, really well all the time, I feel. But this was a really great video, and she was one of my favorites. Next, the top 20 went straight to compete for the evening gown competition, and I had some favorites. Belarus was somebody who stood out to me more during the gown competition than she did for the swimsuit competition, and I just thought that her performance got even better. Belize had a really great moment for gown. She did this really pretty slow turn, and I was like, there it is. That is her moment. Chile's gown looked really beautiful on her. I thought it was so complimentary to her, and she had some really, really great up close shots, and I feel like she's just especially photogenic on video. Colombia was pretty. She also had some really beautiful up close shots, but I personally didn't like this gown for her for this competition. I felt like it was distracting from her. I think that you could have put her in something that was a little bit more sleek and not as much fabric. Czech Republic, once again, my note for her was just that she's so beautiful facially. Ghana really worked the gown. I felt like she carried it so well for the evening gown competition, and for that, she was one of my favorites for this. Indonesia, I think that the gown performance was stronger than her swim performance, and the dress fit her so well, and the videography was beautiful, and I think that she did a great job for this. Malaysia did really well during the gown competition, but I think that she did well if she was competing at Miss Grand International versus at Miss Earth. I think the style of competition is just different, and I feel like the performance would have been better suited for Grand. Netherlands looked so pretty in these shots. I was really feeling her for the gown competition. Philippines, once again, beautiful videography, beautiful gown on her, but gosh, it just made me think I wish that we would see more diversity in gowns at the Miss Earth competition. I don't think that everyone needs to wear green. And the winners certainly don't usually win in green either. Russia has such a beautiful face, but for me during the gown performance of her, I was really on the edge because I felt that the gown and the sash was covering so much of her and they became distracting. So I wasn't sure if she was going to continue on in the competition or what the judges would think. South Africa looked so beautiful in her blue gown. I thought that these were some really great shots of her too. This was a well-produced video. Thailand, once again, so beautiful, especially in her up-close shots. The video was really, really well put together, and I expected nothing less from her. USA, I was really excited to see her gown. I thought it was unique. I don't know who designed it, but I thought it was beautiful, and it was, I know there was green, but it was that mixture of green and blue. It looked very beautiful on her, and oh my gosh, the location that they shot in for her gown performance, I think really just elevated the entire thing, but she looked very, very beautiful. If you're already subscribed to the channel and you want to know how else you can support it, then don't forget to check out my merch store, which is linked right below. Venezuela, the gown to me just screams Venezuela. It was very over the top, very ornate. It reminded me something that we would see at a Miss Venezuela competition. She looked really, really beautiful though in this color, and I appreciated that. When they announced the top 8, I thought these choices really made sense. They were many of my personal favorites. So we had Belize, Venezuela, Thailand, Russia, Philippines, USA, Netherlands, and Chile. So for me, there was no shock for the top 8. After this top 8 was announced, they each had the opportunity to respond to a word or a phrase. And this is a fun competition. I think it's unique because you can be really creative with your answers. But this year I felt that most of the answers were pretty safe. So I'm actually not going to get into the details of each one of these answers because all of these contestants were pretty much tying their answers back to their advocacies for the earth and the environment. So, that is to be expected at Miss Earth. But because all of the answers kept getting tied back into the environment, I was hoping for a more personal connection to be added into these answers. So after the top 8 responded to these phrases or words and spoke on them, I had a feeling about who would move on to the top 4. I was pretty close, but I was one contestant off. So moving on to the top 4, those contestants were able to answer the same question. And they were Belize, yes, USA, yes, Thailand, yes, and then Chile. So Chile to me wasn't necessarily the biggest surprise because I mentioned that she had been a really big fan favorite, but I do feel that either Venezuela or Philippines could have taken that final spot in the top 4 with their top 8 question. So I think that things could have been pretty close there. But tell me what you think. Were these your top 4? Now, all the top 4 got to answer a question. The question was about tech and how far tech can go to save the environment or to help the environment. And Belize talked about being thankful for living in a digital age because we can use tech to help save the environment and it can be used to save the planet. USA said that technology gives us the opportunity to take action. So things start with tech, but we still have to take that action to make changes. Thailand said that tech right now currently serves humans, but she thinks in the future with AI that it can help to save the earth. Chile focused on technology being a means of prevention, and that also in the future, if it's used correctly, it can be used to help solve environmental issues. So the answers were honestly pretty good. They were overall very safe. I didn't hear an answer out of any of these contestants that made me go like, oh wow, she's out, or oh gosh, yes, she's gonna be the winner. But in my heart, I felt when I listened to these, I was like, okay, USA and Belize, those two were really sticking out to me, not only for this, but for their overall presentation. So I felt that the results of this year's competition wasn't just a make or break for any of the areas of competition. The judges were really taking into consideration the entire performance of each contestant. And that's interesting to think about because sometimes in pageantry, you'll see a contestant and let's say that she doesn't have the best swimsuit performance, but she still moves on. That's like the case we're seeing here where that happens because judges are thinking about an overall performance. Other times we see a competition where maybe a contestant didn't do that well in the swimsuit competition and then immediately gets knocked out solely based off of that performance. And it's a really different style of judging, and honestly, it affects every single pageant, and it comes down to a judge's personal preference and also what they have been instructed by the directors of the organization. Do we consider the overall in most cases, or is it very cut and dry and I'm only supposed to be picking the best for every single level of competition as they progress? So it's just interesting to think about. But what did you think about the results of this year's competition? Congratulations to Belize. She made mention at the end that Belize has never placed in the semifinal and that they have never had an international crown. So how exciting is that for Belize? That was really neat to see. And oh, the final results, by the way, let me mention, were the new Miss Earth was Belize, and then air was USA, then we had Chile was water, and Thailand was fire. So at Miss Earth, there is an elemental court. They don't necessarily have a first runner-up or second runner-up, third runner-up. They don't announce it that way. They have the elemental court, and then the elemental court goes on and represents their their element essentially throughout the year and continues to work. I did mention in the beginning of the episode that I want to talk just a little bit about virtual pageants, and I'm really hoping, guys, that we're going to see in-person pageants or at least hybrid pageants come along. I think that when we look at Miss Earth Thailand, for example, they did a really great job of doing some things sort of virtually and then having a small in-person pageant just for the contestants, you know, in a safe space. And that's what I'm really hoping to see for these really big international titles, especially because I am concerned about viewership, because I just don't think that virtual pageants can necessarily really bring that same excitement that an in-person pageant is going to bring. And obviously everybody is doing their best, but I'm hopeful that in the future we're going to continue to see some changes in pageantry so that we can go back to these in-person pageants, because we've seen that it is possible. This year at Miss USA, I'll be attending that. That'll be an in-person pageant. We're seeing an in-person pageant for the Miss Universe competition. So we do know that it is possible, but I know that there are a lot of logistical issues that go into it. But I'm hoping that pageants like Miss Earth are going to be able to bring back those in-person competitions. That's just my hope for the future. But let me know what you're thinking about all of these things. Who were you rooting for? What do you think about the results of this year's competition? And what pageant do you want to see next covered on this channel? Let me know. Just leave your requests in the comment section below.